Welcome to Move the Sticks. I am Bucky Brooks, and I got my guy. I got a new guy. My guy, Patrick Claybon, coming on the pod. Patrick, this is the first time. It's a newbie. It's your debut. What do you got to say to the people being on Move the Sticks?
I say long-time listener, first-time caller. Glad to be. It took a decade, but we're here. We did it. And Buck, I'm just glad. I'm just fortunate for the opportunity. I'm blessed and highly favored, my friend.
Oh, you are blessed and highly favored. We are blessed to have you on all the different things that you do at NFL Media. And so today we have a fun little conversation about all things NFL. Maybe we'll throw in some of the things that you're brewing on. But I don't think – are you a Cowboys fan, Claybon?
No, it's me and DeMarcus. I was at school with DeMarcus. I used to referee his intramural games. You know, he went to Dallas. On his way to the Hall of Fame. So I celebrated the Cow. D-Ware left. They lost me. So that was my relationship with.
Okay. Man, I thought there was a Troy connection between you and DeMarcus Ware that would lead you to sit right in front of the TV and say, you know what? I am with America's team tonight. And so we're going to talk about that because it's time for the lead block presented by T-Mobile for Business. Football needs a network willing to go the extra yard. So do you. Go further with T-Mobile for Business. And so let's talk about that because there's a lot of controversy. People are upset about the Cowboys. I saw people crying, very emotional. Yeah. Michael Parsons in the post-game thing. Cowboys come up short, 27-22. A Bengals team that is explosive and dynamic. And look, it'll be more, and we'll talk about the block punt and those things, but your general thoughts on America's team seemingly being on the brink of playoff elimination.
Yeah, and going up against another team that has found some adventurous ways to lose football games. It's kind of the clash, right, between the very stoppable force and the very movable object on Monday Night Football. But ultimately, right, one team had its quarterback, right, and CeeDee Lamb played a great game. With no Dak, you kind of see the limitations of Cooper Rush and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase doing what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase always do. And I think that a lot of that led into the frustration and what you saw from Micah Parsons really giving 100% of what he could. You know, the Cowboys were glad to have him back there, a different team with him out there. That still wasn't enough because on top of, you know, being overmatched in some situations, and some things still went on their favor, like CeeDee Lamb one-on-one. A free release, the goal line with Mike Hilton, where it's just like, I don't know, like eventually, like the chess pieces is kind of limited to what Lou Anarumo can do sometimes. And that didn't work out for them, but the talent shone out at the end.
Yeah, the talent certainly shows out. And I think it was interesting. I don't know if you've been on social where the Cincinnati Bengals have kind of put out, or somebody on behalf of the Bengals put out the little conversation that they had at halftime where the coach was saying to Jamar Chase, the Cowboys are scared of you. Like basically they're fearful. They don't have anybody that can deal with you. And
that's a lot of fun.
I'll say, I mean, that is a lot. So especially like shameless plug, Hard Knocks Inside the AFC North was fantastic last week. You heard Mike Tomlin talk about Jamar Chase being that man. We then saw him go out there and do what men do. And then against the Dallas Cowboys, obviously the sentiment is expressed for the Cowboys, and they could not contain Jamar Chase. And it is fascinating to watch him continue to get down, and the way that he and Joe Burrow get down is just an extension of those great LSU teams, or that great LSU team that won the Natty. You would think that you would keep all eyes on one, but somehow you lose track of Jamar Chase's whereabouts, and he punishes you in every way.
Yeah, and ultimately, right, you hope the Cincinnati Bengals don't make the same mistake and lose track of Jamar Chase. I don't know why we're at this point in December of 2024 and he isn't locked up, because you see how special that is every single week. And I understand the win-loss column isn't where it is, but you get something nobody else has, you draft that, you keep that thing, and they have something that we haven't seen in a very long time.
They do have something that we haven't seen in a very long time. You talk about someone who can tilt the field in their favor, and the other player that they have on the other side, T. Higgins, is also good. It's, you know, it's funny because we've seen some teams figured out where they're able to keep both wide receivers. Other teams, like the Cincinnati Bengals, seem like they're trying to fumble the bag with both wide receivers and lose established assets. But in the pecking order, Jamar Chase certainly is that guy. And when you look at him and you look at this offense and the way Joe Burrow is playing, how can you not open up the vault and just say, hey, man, take the cash?
I don't know. It truly doesn't make much sense to me because we see teams figure it out, and it's very difficult to come back from a talent deficiency. And we saw them in Jamar's first year be a half second away, if not for a play by
Mhm.
one of the best to ever play the game in Aaron Donald. They could have had the Lombardi then, keep it together, and try to run it back, man.
I mean, why not run it back? Look, I know because you're from down in the South and you know understand how that football works. Are you surprised at Joe Burrow and all the things that we see from Joe Burrow on a weekly basis?
Yeah, well, honestly, when things that first year at LSU, I didn't I would have never believed everything that we've seen since then from Joe Burrow, right? And especially this year, right? Because we're now years removed from the ACL, stepping up and throwing on the run, taking the hits that he did last night, having his helmet almost ripped off. And somehow, that wasn't necessarily seen. He just makes so many plays, and at this point, nothing that he does surprises me other than the Bengals, right, managing to fall apart late in games, which they did again in this one. It was only the fact that the Cowboys
Mhm.
are having an even worse season that they wound up winning that football game.
Yeah, and speaking of the Cowboys, like so much has been made of the Cowboys, right? All of the heat was on the Cowboys coming into the season. People talking about Mike McCarthy. They talked about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is on the shelf with a hamstring injury. Mike McCarthy is seemingly coaching for his job, even though Jerry Jones doesn't necessarily seem like he's putting that kind of pressure on him. Seems like we are more on Mike McCarthy about his job status than the
Yeah.
Cowboys are. Like, what do you feel about the faltering version of America's team that we're seeing?
Well, all the problems that we knew coming into the year, right? The lack of commitment to several different aspects of the team. I think the Zimmer hire makes more sense with the way that we've seen the defense play in the past few weeks with Micah Parsons back. But there was a big loss in Dan Quinn. Not a real commitment to running the football. Where Zeke is your big signing. Tony Pollard is playing great in Nashville right now for less money than he was getting for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's kind of a theme where we see that with Tony Pollard. We saw that with Amari Cooper. And you wonder, despite hearing about how the Cowboys are all in, where's this significant investment in trying to be a successful football team? I haven't seen it. And I don't know when we're going to see it. You get Micah back, right? And that's something you have to have. But this is money that could have been saved. But so we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. If you invest earlier in all these players, then you have more money to do the things that you need to do. But they didn't do that. So here we are again. Here we are again.
They love holding on to the cash. Like they like paying people at the last minute. They don't mind the price going all the way up when they can get it at a bargain basement deal. They're like, no, we'll pay premium prices for all of this stuff. Let's go. It is really baffling to see the team construction because when Jerry Jones sets the expectation, when he says that they're all in, and then you look up at the pieces that have acquired, these aren't all in pieces. These aren't game changing pieces that they acquired to surround Dak Prescott and their marquee players around. And here's the thing: now that because they've waited so late, you pay Michael Parsons, you paid Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb is paid. Guess what? They have to do it with the pieces that they currently have. And so, what changes for the Cowboys? I don't know. But one thing that we know change somewhere along the line, they are going to have to get like a little special teams rule book so they can understand what's going on because we have seen this happen a few different times. The Dallas Cowboys make a great play. They block a punt. The ball goes beyond the line of scrimmage. Amani Aruye wants to pick it up because he sees the ball. I'm going to go get the ball. But he doesn't grab the ball. So the Bengals get it. They recover. And look, the rest of it is history. But here's the thing. It happened a few years ago where they did the same thing. Like, same thing. Nashawn Wright, the ball goes across. He picks it up. Boom. At some point, right, we have to have a conversation about this with the team, right? We got to tell the players what the rules are, right, Pat?
Well, at a certain point, man, the ball just not being round, you're just snake bit, and really you got to charge it to the game. That's the universe deciding that you weren't going to win the football game that day. If it wasn't that, it probably would have been something else. Like we saw, they get the fortune right of Cooper Rush making a bad throw. It's the backup quarterback you expect. Hooker picks off Joe Burrow in a spot where like Zach Taylor, Joe, like Jamar, nobody knew what actually happened there. It's just one of the worst throws that we've seen Joe Burrow make in a long time. So you get that gift, and then the gift comes right back in terms of Rui on the blocked kick where you see the ball. You say, "Oh, I'm gonna make a play." The end zone's right there.
I'm going to make a play.
Didn't work out.
It didn't certainly work out like that. Like we've seen it, man. It's almost like watching like little kids, right? Little kids playing soccer, right?
Mhm.
Anyone who's had little kids or anyone who's been around the field who's watched youth soccer, it's like a little beehive. They see the ball and they're just like moths to the flame. And that is what happened for the Cowboys. The ball goes beyond the thing. You see it bouncing. You're like, look at the bouncing ball. I
Mhm.
just got to touch it. I got to
Yep.
touch the ball. And unfortunately, he was not able to bring it in. They get the ball back. And look, man, it's a play that happens all the time. You would like to think that people will react under pressure, but sometimes, man, you just see the ball and I just gotta touch it. Even though your parents said don't pet the animals, you just want to stick your hand out there when you're in the zoo.
Yeah, it's Monday Night Football, man. There is a universe out there where that ball bounces up, he cradles it in his hands, breaks
Boom.
the tackle, he's in the end zone rest of his life. He's having bad banquet chicken in 2056, talking about that moment. But instead, this is the world we live in.
It is the world. It is the world that we live in. So then where do these two teams go from here? The Cowboys, I mean, I guess you could say they still have a chance, but look, man, without your starting quarterback, with the limited pieces that they have, they lose Overstreet to a season-ending injury. You just wonder, do they have enough firepower to really compete? And then for the Bengals, can the Cincinnati Bengals get back into the mix? Like they're a few games behind, but can they get back, claw their way back into the playoff race? What do you think, Pat?
It's going to be tough. I mean, you look through the loss to the Chargers, the 2-point conversion loss to the Ravens. So many instances, the Washington Commanders game, where they could go back and they could pick any one of those games, and maybe this becomes a more realistic opportunity. They're just too far behind, Buck. We got the Dolphins, the Broncos, all of these teams making late pushes in the AFC. It's a tough road. It's a tough road for them.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, like I feel you. You just kind of feel like they're on tour. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put them away. We're gonna say, oh, OVA, it's over for them. It's over for the Bengals. It's over for the Cowboys. We're on to the next. And so that's a wrap for the lead block presented by T-Mobile for Business. Football needs a network willing to go to extra yards. So do you. Go further with T-Mobile for Business. We're gonna take a break and we'll be right back with more conversation with Pat Claybon. All right, Pat. So we talked briefly about the playoff mix, and
Mhm.
the playoff picture is interesting. And before we talk about the picture in general, I'm just going to ask you point blank: who's the best team in football?
Oh man, it's the Detroit Lions are the best team in football, Bucky. To me, you take their respective pieces. They still got Carlton Davis, Brian Branch, all right, as well as Kirby Jones, like back there making
Mhm.
plays. I know they've had losses in the on the defensive side, and extensive losses. But if you're asking me the best team with the most amount of talent that can make a push, the losses are huge, obviously. But I think it's the Detroit Lions right now.
Okay, the Detroit Lions, Motown's finest. I've seen them up close and personal. Was there a few weeks ago when they whooped up on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'll tell you, complete football team. They can do whatever they want to do on offense. They can win with force or finesse. They can run it. They can throw it. Quarterback is good. Defense is hungry and nasty. And when they play at home, they have a bit of an edge to you. But here's what I'm content because, like, you're a guy and you understand this. Like, given your track background, you can't beat the man until you beat the man. And so I'm looking around at the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm sitting there saying, I know what everyone is saying.
Mhm.
They're vulnerable. He's this and that. This is the year we're going to get him. But Patrick, they've won 15 in a row when it comes to one-score games. And it reminds me a little bit of Usain Bolt. Like Usain Bolt would mess around in the world championships, and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm gonna beat him. I'm gonna get him." And then we get to the Olympics, and he waxes everybody. I kind of feel like that about the Kansas City Chiefs. It's not the same. He's not winning by like 10 meters, like running through the tape, but he's still kind of just looking around, you know, getting it done. Now that we know that the Kansas City Chiefs are more than likely going to have home field in Arrowhead, who is going to go to Arrowhead and beat them?
I think they can lose, Bucky. They can lose to all these AFC teams. It might not happen. And I feel you on the Bolt analogy, but this is almost like having that 200 final be 10 minutes after the 100-meter final with a different field, where the Kansas City Chiefs have run this race. And they've run this race so much that essentially the guys like Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, they've played an extra season of football now that other people have not played. And so like they're hitting posts to win games against the Chargers in Arrowhead. Harrison
little bank,
Butler's
little
watching
bank
from the
shot.
sideline, and like Spags' defense, they didn't give up 30 points for almost 2 consecutive years, and then they almost do it in back-to-back games. One of those games to the Carolina Panthers. I'm not saying they can't win a Super Bowl. And clearly, right? The Kansas City Chiefs can win another Super Bowl. This one would be more difficult than the other ones, including the one that they lost to the Buccaneers. I just feel like if the Chiefs are vulnerable, if not now, when? If not now, Bucky, like they will win the next 6 Super Bowls if we feel like they're the favorite right now. Like truly, right?
I just feel like they're in the middle of a 150 repeats workout, right? They're kind of bored. They're not really maxing out. They kind of know what they got to do. Like, man, coach, the league meet isn't like we got time. We got time to get ready for it. Like I'm doing the work. In the dual meet, he almost got you. Yeah, coach. I feel like they've been here for so long, particularly with Pat Mahomes. Once it gets into the fourth quarter, they're like, okay, man, let's get serious. Let's go ahead and win this thing. And that's what they continue to do each and every week. Now, it's been a little too close for comfort. They've had to block field goals. They've had to rely on some improbable stuff.
The Raiders gifted them a game, Bucky.
I mean, some improbable stuff. Like people are having clock time management issues and those things, but they're always there. And I just know that now you have to believe that they're the boogeymen, right? They're the boogeymen. Like you just look around in the clock, and no matter how good it's going, you know what? To this day, I won't do it. But you remember when Candyman came out, and we're like looking around, and they're like, "Hey, don't go to the bathroom and don't say Candyman 3 times. Like, don't say it 3 times." I feel like when we get into the fourth quarter of these games in the postseason, I think they're gonna be like, "Oh man, here we go. I can't say it. I can't say it. I can't say it." Then they're gonna say it, and the Kansas City Chiefs are gonna come out, and they're gonna find a way to snatch it at the end. And Pat Mahomes is going to do what he normally does in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and it's hard to get away from that feeling. It just is. But they can't protect him right now, Bucky. To ask him to do the type of things that he's had to do in the past, it's just very difficult for me to put that picture in there. Of course, they can win the games, but it's as a favorite right now. I'm not seeing it. I gotta go.
I get it. And look, Pat, prior to yesterday, I was ready to say that the Philadelphia Eagles are their team. But now the city of brotherly love, there seems to be a little infighting. You have some stuff. You got Brandon Graham going on radio. You have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith having very tense conversations on the sideline. They're campaigning to throw the ball, even though they're running roughshod over people. Saquon Barkley's having maybe a historic year. When we look at it, by the end of the season, he may shatter the single season rushing mark. And yet we have this discord that just appears. And if we don't have the discord, then we got the smug head coach that is bebopping around and, kind of giving mean mugging like he's in the club. I don't know. It's just something weird about the Eagles,
That's them. That's who they are. They lose 2 games. You would think they have lost the last 12 games. The way things go on, they get a win at home in week 14, and people are upset. Like there's music playing in the locker room, and AJ Brown's like passing. We got work. That's just the way that they're cut. And the only time that they're really going to enjoy things is if that confetti is falling in New Orleans. Like, and that's the situation. That's what the situation with a lot of Eagles fans, the situation with a lot of people on the team. But this is a team that almost played a perfect game and won the Super Bowl. And they've seen significant losses since then, and they're still here. They're still contending. San Francisco's not doing that. Dallas isn't doing that. A lot of these teams that have been in contention aren't here anymore. And I really think the Eagles have high expectations for themselves, and that frustration comes out. Even Nick Sirianni, but he hasn't done anything weird in the past few weeks. There's been no jawing with fans, no interesting press conference comments. So I think Nick Sirianni's kind of leveled things out. And if everybody's so upset, right, about a late season win against the Carolina Panthers, well, we just talked about the defending champs. They had to survive late against the Carolina Panthers. So, like, what's the bar for Philly, really? Do they have to blow everybody out or else we're all sad? They're a good team. It's going to be all right. Like, Philly is.
I'm telling you, man, I think it's something about Philadelphia. I think it's something about, like, maybe they're playing too many Rough Rider songs in the locker room. Like, everyone's upset and tense. I feel like maybe they can find some of the party music from the 90s where we just kind of lighten the load. You know what I'm saying? Lighten the mood a little bit. They need to have fun. right now they're very rugged. And I feel like they're still in the Timberland era, like in Philly. Like, come on, light it up. Like, let's have some fun.
Like the club mix era when everybody was doing like everybody had techno songs.
Yeah,
Like the
everybody.
DJ had us falling in love. Like that's
Yeah.
what we need. Okay.
I just
Do it,
want
Philly.
to change the energy in Philadelphia a little bit. Like I think maybe Colleen, like maybe we need Colleen Wolfe to kind of come in and drop the right thing on them to kind of get them going. Because right now they're a little angry, they're a little testy, and those things. And so we talk about Philadelphia. The AFC team, to me, that is the AFC version of Philadelphia. The Baltimore Ravens drive me a bit crazy in terms of when you look at them, the way that they're constructed, you're like, man, that team has Super Bowl written all over them. They're so good on offense with Lamar Jackson to Eric Henry. What they're able to do in terms of being able to control the game with their offense. Defensively, they still have enough goons and enforcers to kind of impose their will on opponents. But then you look up, Patrick, in a game that they should just win, they drop. In games that they're not supposed to win, they dominate. It's the craziest Jekyll and Hyde act that I've seen of an NFL team.
And it's entirely frustrating. As a person who's a Lamar stan, the moment he stepped on the field that first game at Louisville against Auburn, I was like, this is it. This is what I want to see. And the team has finally gotten to a point where I think the offense works. Now, the Deontay Johnson trade did not work out, clearly, for any number of reasons. Not being able to keep his feet, not being willing to put his feet on the field, any number of reasons. But to see kind of the defense improve, right? They have a chance to get better after the bye. They were able to get a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. Game after that, defense applying a ton of pressure. But it's just inconsistency from different parts of the team where you finally get the offense you want, the defense falls back. The pass rush falls back. But then there's issues in the secondary. Then receivers having issues separating, where sometimes we enjoy, right, Zay Flowers being imaginative with his routes. And then there's times where you would like Zay Flowers to be in the place
he's supposed to be.
Expects him to be when he throws the ball. But there's the thing about, it's frustrating, much like Philly, because you have that talent, and that's something you can't replace here in early December, and that's why they have a chance. But it's going to be frustrating, just like when they were the best team in football last year and managed to lose in the AFC Championship game.
But they may have a better path to the Super Bowl this year because look, last year they had all the pressure. They were entered the tournament with all the pressure as top seed, all those stuff. This year it won't be the same, and you can make the case that maybe it's a better team this year than last year going in. They just got to find their way. Hopefully, John Harbaugh can kind of push the right buttons to get this team going because they certainly are good enough to be there in the end. And so, speaking of the end, Patrick, unfortunately, like we got to end it. We're up against the clock on this episode of Move the Six. But here's what I know. I might have an opportunity to bring you back for another podcast.
Let's do it.
Talk about some other stuff. So until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. That's Patrick Claybon. This is Move the Six. We'll see you next time.